Rachel Baribeau.
Hello, my friend.
Writer for Gridiron now, and also you do some radio yourself on SiriusXM, right?
I do. A couple of years ago, after a stop in Tuscaloosa from 2009 2011 with you at the Tuscaloosa News, I moved on to Birmingham and then Atlanta, and Sirius came and said, we'd like to make you the first female on College Sports Nation. And Aaron, that meant a lot to me, because when you're on the radio, as you know, you're not judged on anything other than your knowledge and ability to communicate and ability to entertain or inform an audience. And so I still pinch myself. I'm like, it's all men and then me. And so it's kind of crazy.
Now, you also did, you hosted the pregame show live from Tampa last year, right? What was that through, and what was that experience like?
Woo, amazing. So a couple of years ago, the College Football Playoff was looking for a couple of pregame hosts and halftime hosts to entertain the audience there. Now they stream it back home as well, and somehow I was chosen and to I mean, you know, when you think about covering college football, when you get a chance to be a part of history, and like I remember going back and being in Jerry's world, and I'm like, holy smokes, that Jumbotron's so big you could fit a VW bug in my nostril. You know, I mean, it was that I was like, wow. But just to, you know, as I said to Bill Hancock on that pregame show, the very first one, I said, you know, do you recognize we're rewriting the history books of college football right now? Like, this is how crazy this is, and one day I'll get to tell my great grandkids, like, I had a tiny part in that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I often find myself that covering Alabama at this period in history that one day we'll pinch ourselves. I covered one of the greatest dynasties ever.
Absolutely.
Talking to Rachel Baribeau, writer for Gridiron now and also host of SiriusXM. What's the name of the show again?
College Sports Nation.
College Sports Nation.
Yeah.
How many SEC Media Days is this for you?
We're going to date ourselves. 10 plus.
10 plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere around in there.
And what do you think about the kind of event it's become?
You know, okay. So, you know, you either get something from somebody or you get nothing. You know, like, and I say that seems like a super simple comment, but sometimes you can glean something, but they have been coached and talked to, and then you hear the players a lot of times, they're repeating the same things the coaches are, so you know that they've been coached. And listen, I'm all for them being coached. I mean, last year, Dan Mullen comes in here, and he did not at all get out in front of the Jeffrey Simmons situation, was not coached, was not ready, and made some comments that were really despicable about his own wife and children never having been in that situation, nor did he think they would. So I think coaching is good, but sometimes, man, you know, other than, you know, just taking, I think Brett Bielema is a great dad, or I think, you know, Derek Mason is a great motivator. Like, I'd love a little bit more meat on the bone.
Right.
More substance, but what can you do?
No, yeah, you touched on an interesting subject there. For the purposes of the SEC, it's beneficial because it keeps their name and their marketing. But for working journalists, has this event outlived its usefulness?
You know, unless you get a bombshell, you know, unless you get, like last year, I went hard on Dan Mullen and pushed about his, you know, decision to suspend Jeffrey Simmons for one non-conference game, and I kept pushing and he wouldn't answer. And then Kyle Tucker, the AJC, pushed harder and finally got him to kind of go over the edge and give us something. But yes, I do believe in a lot of respects it has. You know, for me, do I go listen to the coaches? Do I talk to them afterwards? Do I listen to the players? I had a moment yesterday that is against everything we're talking about right now. And it's the moment you live for as a journalist. So Darius Geis was in the room, in the radio internet room, and somebody asked him about his playing style. And he said, the person said, announcers say you run angry. Announcers say this. Would you agree that you run angry? And he said, yes, I would. And then he went on to say, I'm kind of like a ping pong ball. Well, it got me to thinking in my head, I want to know why he runs angry, you know, because I go around and I talk to young men on college campuses about purpose, passion, platform, how to be a good man. What does it mean to be a good man? So I was curious, and I asked him. And Aaron, it was like nobody else was in the room. He locked eyeballs on me, and he got really emotional. And I was like, you know, in it with him. And he said, I'm running from where I grew up. I'm running to save my 5-year-old brother. I'm running to get my family out of there. I'm running because I almost didn't make it. And, you know, I'm like, whoa. And it just gives you a whole nother perspective of these young men. And, you know, I like to tell people, when you're talking about these athletes, they are somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's nephew, somebody's grandchild. And what I've found is that they're really dying for you to know all that they are outside of athletes.
Talking to Rachel Baribeau, writer for Gridiron, now also hosts SiriusXM's College Sports Nation. Now, Rachel, you've been kind of on a speaking tour. And I'm curious, when you're dealing with male athletes in a sport that's primarily driven by testosterone.
Correct.
And there's that kind of macho attitude that comes along with it. Are they getting the training they need in how to respect the opposite gender?
You know, yes and no. It's different for every school. So I had a coach, a young coach. You know, we're trending towards these young coordinators getting head coaching jobs. And I was really flattered. He sent me an email, and he said, here's like kind of my portfolio that I use whenever I have these interviews. And he said, there's a part in there on discipline. Would you take a look at it, considering what you're doing with changing the narrative? And I said, I sure would. And in it, he talked about what he would do once they made the error, right? Once they made the mistake. And I said, I really feel like you need to talk about, and you will stand out if you talk about somebody who does the prevention training. What does it mean to be a good man? You know, I think sometimes as fans, and you've seen the irresponsible fans on Twitter, they talk about these kids, they do these things. You know, we don't know what Johnny saw growing up. We don't know if he ever saw a good man in his house. We don't know if he saw a boyfriend beat his mom. We don't know if mom wasn't there and grandma raised him. You know, no matter what your skin type looks like or socioeconomic background, you don't know what they went through. And so I just think it's important, as I told this young coach, to have the prevention training. If I can save one young man from throwing his life away and maybe another victim, or it doesn't have to be that extreme. You know, I did an interview with Cecil Hurt recently, and he said something that blew my mind. He said, Rachel, if one young man gets it and he goes back to his household and he breaks the cycle of violence, of abuse, of substance abuse, then his kids and his grandkids and their grandkids are going to be kings and queens, something we talk about in the talk. So, yeah, I think there needs to be more focus on the prevention. Now, a lot of coaches are getting it. I've been to, you know, FSU, Clemson, Alabama, Baylor, FIU, Minnesota, Ole Miss, with a bunch of stops coming up. But still today, and I won't say who, but it breaks my heart every time, but I still am getting turned down. I'm getting teams coming to me and saying, we want you, but there's also schools that I've been trying to get into, and they say, we don't have any place for you. And that stinks. I want to say another word, but it absolutely stinks. And it grieves my heart, Aaron, because I know that there's a young man in that program that could have used what I had to say.
You know, and I found myself learning a lot over the last few years. I think we grew up and we had a definition in our head of what we thought rape was, a very violent act. And I'm learning that I would be very uncomfortable having a son or daughter in college now, because you don't know, you're almost afraid to talk about it, and you don't know what the rules are. And I think for men, it's becoming more defined what females have had to be living with for so long. Or you know, Nick Saban, you recently talked there. Do they do a good job of explaining these things to these guys? As
far as I know, they do. You know, my talk, we start with purpose, passion, platform, setting the world on fire with your good deeds. We talk about the night somebody drugged me across the house by my hair, and no one helped me. There were 6 people in the house, and I asked these young men if they were in that room, would they have helped me? And they're like, one young man screamed. He's like, yes, hell yes. You know, the guys are nodding. He's screaming, you know. So as far as I know, they do, but I think that's an important part of what we discuss, because here's what I say to them. If you're listening to popular culture and you're listening to music and you're looking at magazines and you're listening to what your friends say, she's nothing but a piece of, okay? You can, I'm just going to use their lingo, you can hit it and quit it. There's no accountability. There's no repercussions for your actions. You don't have to be a good man. You don't ever have to call. You can use her up like a piece of garbage. So, and that's what she's there for. That's what popular culture is telling these young men. And I am like, not no, but hell no. And I tell them, I say, if you want a queen, like the kind of woman that your grandma is, your mama is, your girlfriend, your wife, your sister, whoever it is, if you want a queen, then you can't get her by being that kind of guy. That is not a king. So you got to be a king in all areas of your life. And so I'm trying to challenge that, because I say poor young men, and I'm serious. A lot of them, like I said, haven't seen good. The coaches have limited time with them, right? And so they're trying to get them up athletically and all of those things. And then then they're getting bombarded with this in media. So what do we think they're supposed to do? They're not getting the positive message affirmations about women and how to treat them. So I'm trying to change that.
Not to even mention peer pressure, which
yes.
is very strong.
Are you kidding me? Yes.
You've had an opportunity to work professionally with Nick Saban. You've also got to know another side of him. What do you think the biggest misconception with Saban is?
That he's a dick. Excuse my French. I mean, that's what I get. I don't know if you're going to bleep that out. Sorry. But I get that. I get it in airports. I get it. I was just at a luncheon the other day, and they're like, "Oh, he's such a jerk," and I'm like, "Actually, he's not." Would you like to know about the millions that he donates without anybody knowing to Nick's kids? Would you like to know about the fact that even before anybody did anything, he was out giving out water the morning after the tornado? Would you like to know about this long love affair with his wife and how he takes her on a honeymoon at every away game? Would you like to know about the fact that even as reporters, when he's done kind of yelling, getting his point across, he always gives you a thoughtful answer? Like, there is substance in his interviews, and I just don't find him to be the jerk that other people do. Yeah. So I will defend him in that right.
Wrapping up here with Rachel Baribeau. You can follow her on Twitter at Rachel Baribeau, writer for Gridiron Now and also host of College Sports Nation on SiriusXM Radio. Who do you like this year in the SEC?
I just have this crazy feeling about LSU with Matt Canada and Dave Aranda, and I think I asked Ogeron yesterday about Ogeron 2.0, and he said he's softer, kinder, keeps on his shirt, and lets his assistants coach. And I think when you have a guy that can absolutely transform an offense like Matt Canada did and what he did at Pitt and with Nathan Peterman, I really feel like if Danny Etling can stay healthy with a minor, air quotes, back surgery, because no back surgery is ever minor. Right. If he can stay healthy, man, I'm really curious on them being a surprise team. I also think this. I think if Dan Mullen transforms another dang quarterback, then he is going to be such a hot commodity because Dak Prescott already gives him all the props for his success. So that's interesting to me. And I'm really looking forward to seeing if Kirby Smart transforms into all that I think he can be with that killer instinct.